In Timber Falls, the mornings don't start with a whistle. They start with the rhythm of steel meeting cedar. Caleb and Charles work side by side in the woodyard, their movements falling into a shared rhythm as the day slowly took shape. While the men were busy carving out a living at the woodyard, the rest of Timber Falls moved at a gentler pace. The streets slowly filled with wagons, conversation, and the familiar sounds of another ordinary day beginning. Across town, Juliet spent her mornings in a different kind of labor. In a place like Timber Falls, people have plenty to say, but not always the words to say it. As a letter writer, Juliet's task was to turn raw emotion into ink and paper. She knew that while an axe could build a house, a well-placed letter could build a bridge or burn one down. Timber Falls had a way of making errands feel like introductions waiting to happen. Juliet moved through the town square with a woven basket in hand, taking in the rhythm of it all. Merchants calling out prices, wagons rolling past, the steady hum of a place built on work rather than ceremony. She hadn't come looking for anything beyond supplies, but opportunity has a way of arriving uninvited. Then Juliet went to the office of the timber company, where Charles sat behind a desk buried in ledgers and supply records, a man more comfortable with wood and numbers than conversation. Juliet asked him if there were men working under his supervision. Perhaps some might need the services of a letter writer. Charles told that there was one man, Caleb. Charles told her where she could find him, the sheriff's office, not because Caleb belonged there in any official sense, but because in Timber Falls, the sheriff's office wasn't just for law, it was where most town business got done. The sheriff's office was a place of quiet authority, smelling of old ink and cedar. Caleb sat at the center of it, his frame hunched over a desk. Juliet walked in and her eyes drifted to the corner of the room where a shaggy, silent observer waited behind the steel, a dog whose presence felt like a soft heartbeat in a room full of hard edges. After the pleasantries, Juliet explained she's looking for work as a letter writer, and Charles suggested this office as her first stop. Caleb's work at the woodyard had left him little time for the office, and the letters had piled up. Each one carried a strict timetable, answers within 2 days, dispatched before the week's end. Caleb slid the envelope across the desk, the weight of his unfinished business now resting in Juliet's hands. For Juliet, the offer was more than work, it was belonging. It's as if Timber Falls itself had welcomed her. A few days have passed, and the heavy work of the woodyard has been traded for a quiet morning at the homestead. Caleb makes his way toward the farmhouse, crossing the sun-drenched yard to check on the progress Juliet has made with his correspondence. Her house has become her makeshift office, a peaceful spot tucked against the towering pines. Caleb told her that their professional arrangement is already bringing a new kind of order to the clearing. Juliet offers a sincere word of thanks, telling Caleb she's truly grateful for the work he's provided. They acknowledge the trust growing between them before saying their goodbyes. Juliet turns back toward the house, leaving Caleb to walk back across the yard as the morning sun settles over the clearing. Not every part of Timber Falls felt unfamiliar to Juliet. Just beyond the main road, in the house beside her own, lived her cousin, Ruth, the one person responsible for convincing her to make the journey west in the first place. Where Juliet was measured and thoughtful, her cousin carried the kind of energy that filled a room before she even spoke. Life around her never stayed quiet for long. The two women spent their afternoons slipping easily into familiar rhythms, turning ordinary chores into something far more lively than necessary. For Juliet, those moments became a welcome balance to the steady routine of work, a reminder that Timber Falls was slowly becoming more than just another stop along the way. It didn't take long for word of Juliet's work to spread through Timber Falls. What began as a handful of letters at Caleb's homestead soon turned into something much larger. Shop owners needed help with invoices. Families wanted assistance writing to relatives back east. And before long, Juliet found herself becoming a familiar face throughout town. Outside the mercantile, conversations that once began as introductions now carried the easy rhythm of regular customers. The women of Timber Falls spoke warmly of her steady work, her careful attention, and the quiet patience she brought to every letter placed in her hands. In a town where most people measured trust slowly, Juliet was earning hers one page at a time. As the days passed, Juliet's cousin Ruth made it her mission to ensure she didn't spend every waking hour hidden behind stacks of letters and ledgers. In Timber Falls, community life had a way of drawing people in whether they planned for it or not. Before long, Juliet found herself joining the church choir, this little light of mine, easing into days filled with music, familiar faces, and laughter that carried long after rehearsals had ended. The more time Juliet spent in town, the more naturally she became part of its everyday rhythms. Church gatherings, seasonal celebrations, and events for the town's children slowly filled the spaces between her work. What had once felt unfamiliar now felt lived in. Little by little, Timber Falls was becoming the place she belonged. Life in Timber Falls rarely slowed down for injury, but after a long day at the woodyard left Caleb nursing a badly strained shoulder. Even he was forced into a few reluctant days of rest. For a man accustomed to constant movement, stillness did not come easily, which made Juliet's visit all the more unexpected. And somewhere between the passing conversation and the unusual quiet of the room, something shifted. Away from the woodyard and the weight of responsibility, Caleb seemed different, lighter somehow. The guarded edges Juliet had grown used to were still there, but softened. And by the time Juliet finally stood to leave, the room no longer carried the awkwardness of two people simply learning to work together. Something quieter had settled there instead, something familiar. By the time spring settled over Timber Falls, Juliet had become part of the town in ways she never expected. What began with letters and ledgers had slowly unfolded into choir rehearsals, church gatherings, and afternoons spent helping wherever an extra pair of hands was needed. So when the annual Easter celebration arrived, Juliet found herself right in the middle of it all. Juliet once again found herself volunteering alongside the rest of the community. This time, however, she wasn't working alone. Caleb and Juliet had been recruited into helping hide the Easter eggs before the children arrived. The two moved through the community yard together, hiding brightly colored eggs while quietly debating which hiding places were too easy and which might leave frustrated children searching until supper. Just moments later, the community grounds buzzed with excitement as children raced across the field searching for brightly painted eggs hidden among fences, barrels, and low tree branches. The spring celebration is in full swing, but Juliet's attention is pulled to the middle of the grounds. She pauses, her eyes fixed on Caleb as he helps one of the small boys find his Easter eggs. She watches him talking softly, kneeling in the grass to level himself with the boy. With a gentle nudge, he guides the little boy toward the hidden treasure. Standing a little ways off, Juliet stays still, her breath catching as she takes in the sight. It's a side of him the woodyard rarely sees, a softness that tugs at her heart. Later on, Juliet remembers a lone Easter egg hidden high along the fence. Determined to reach it, she steps onto a small bucket she's turned upside down to balance herself. Stretching just a little too far, she feels the metal shift beneath her weight and she loses her balance, but Caleb is there to catch her. His hands catch her firmly, steadying her against him just before she can fall. They are both caught off guard by the weight of the moment, realizing that a simple slip has pulled them closer than they ever intended to be. As the evening quiets down, Caleb meets his best friend, Joe Thomas, at the Timber Bar, where they usually hang out for a game of darts and a drink. The atmosphere at the bar is thick with the scent of sawdust and tobacco as Caleb and businessman Joe Thomas face off at the dartboard. Caleb's focus is usually unshakable, but as Joe prepares his next throw, he mentions a letter Juliet sent on his behalf. Joe explains that the message was misdirected, causing a wave of confusion in a business arrangement he thought was settled. Caleb freezes. The casual noise of the room fades as the weight of the mistake sets in. He isn't just worried by the error, he's unsettled by the breach in the order he's worked so hard to maintain. By letting Juliet into his private affairs, he's handed over a piece of his control. And now, the very person he trusted to bring clarity, has introduced a storm of uncertainty into his quiet life. The morning light in Timber Falls carries a quiet stillness as Juliet makes her way to the office. Since the Easter celebration, something between her and Caleb has shifted. Determined to find out if she did something wrong, she pushes the door open and finds the dog waiting. She kneels and begins to play with him, the tension of the last few days momentarily forgotten. The floorboards groan as Caleb walks out from the back room. Juliet looks up. He is shirtless. Caleb is as surprised by the intrusion as she is by the view. Juliet turns and makes a quick retreat. She pulls the door open and shuts it firmly behind her with a small, knowing smile tugging at her lips. A low mist hangs over the clearing as Caleb approaches the house. Juliet watches him from the porch, a small, welcoming smile lighting up her face. Caleb remains rigid, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his jaw set tight. Before the silence can settle, he blurts it out, asking if she sent the wrong letter to the merchants. Juliet slowly sets her tea down, looking up at the man towering over her. She explains it was an honest mistake, one she's already smoothed over with Joe Thomas. She tells him how Mr. Hines at the Mercantile accidentally spilled tea on the original envelope, and, in the rush to replace it, scribbled down the wrong address. As her apology meets the quiet air, the tension in Caleb's shoulders finally breaks. He tells her not to worry since it's sorted now, and he sinks down to sit beside her. He admits he was only worried because he's fought so hard for everything he has. Timber Falls gave him a chance to thrive, and he's protective of that life. But sitting there with her, the mist swirling around the yard, he realizes that everything is finally well. Over the coming weeks, they found solace in each other's company without ever speaking of it aloud. Somehow, no matter how the days began, Timber Falls seemed determined to pull them back into the same orbit. In the quiet of the night, Caleb found himself standing beneath a canopy of white linen swaying gently in the summer wind. Juliet was already in his arms. The world around them glowed soft and golden, the scent of fresh cedar and sun-warmed cotton lingering in the air. Her laughter was quiet against his shoulder as he held her close, as though they had done so 1,000 times before. Peace settled deep in his chest, strange in its certainty. For one fleeting moment, it felt like home. Then the wind shifted. The sheets stirred violently between them, snapping like sails in a storm. Juliet's smile faded as she slowly stepped backward from his embrace. The world seemed to pull away from him strangely, as though the dream itself had begun to unravel. The white linen drifted between them, obscuring her from view. Her laughter echoed somewhere distant now, fainter, slipping away from him. Caleb pushed past another sheet and caught sight of her at the far end of the yard, bathed in blinding sunlight. He lurched forward and woke with a sharp breath in the pale light of dawn. The ache in his chest remained, and for the first time, Caleb understood with terrifying clarity that losing her would pain him. The morning sun breaks through the mist, but for Caleb, the clarity came long before dawn. After a night spent wrestling with the terrifying thought of losing her, his heart is finally resolved. He doesn't just want her help with the ledgers or the woodyard, he wants her. Later that morning, as the dust settles in the paddock, Juliet finds Caleb near the stables where he had been teaching some of the youngsters in the community how to ride. Caleb is happy to see her. He had been planning to head to her house, his heart still heavy with the lessons of the previous night's dream, but seeing her standing emboldens him. Without the usual hesitation of a man who keeps his thoughts locked away, he asks her if she would spend the afternoon with him, and Juliet agreed. A visible wave of relief and joy washes over him, replacing his rugged focus with a newfound sense of purpose. Later that afternoon, Caleb and Juliet settle onto a picnic blanket in a lush green meadow beneath a brilliant summer sky. Caleb sits close beside her. Juliet smiles softly, teasing him about how formal he had sounded asking her to join him. Caleb admits he was afraid she might say no. The sound settles something restless inside him. He asks her to be his date to the wedding the following day. Juliet's face lights up as she agrees, the light in her eyes mirroring the bright afternoon sun. She tells him she'd be honored, though she admits that she'll have to find something to wear that doesn't smell like the cedar and pine of the mill. Caleb smiles, a real, unburdened look that reaches his eyes, and tells her that it wouldn't matter to him if she showed up in her work apron. She would still be the most beautiful woman in the room. Juliet laughs carefree, like a smitten teenager. Juliet pulls closer, her eyes locked onto his as they whisper sweet nothings to each other. This leads them into a tender kiss that feels like a long-awaited promise. They pull back just enough to share a few more soft looks. They lean into each other again in another kiss, the world around them fading into insignificance. In the warmth of each other's arms, the uncertainty of the past is finally replaced by a beautiful, shared future as the sun begins its slow descent over the valley.